Welcome to our conversation about the benefits of New Hampshire from a tax perspective as well as a trust perspective. We're at 85 Wentworth Road, the Stone House in Rye, New Hampshire. You can see the beautiful home behind us, stonehousenewhampshire.com. If you have more questions about that, contact Yvonne Marston on the Dow Group. She'd be happy to get you a tour. Based on our conversation, you might more want to come to New Hampshire and learn about our trusts and save on some taxes. I'm here today. My name is Adam Dow with the Dow Group. I'm here today to talk with Patrick Collins about income, taxes, state taxes, sales tax, but also trusts and all kinds of different things. So Patrick, why don't you introduce yourself? You work for McLane Middleton. Tell us about your firm and yourself.
So my name is Patrick Collins. I'm a partner at McLane Middleton, and I work pretty much exclusively in the high net worth space for estate planning, which covers both wills and trusts, as well as income tax planning for high net worth clients and asset protection planning, and utilizing the full panoply of optionality that New Hampshire brings to bear for high net worth clients.
So people look at New Hampshire. They think of the Four Seasons, they think of the lakes, mountains, but one thing they may have heard of is the no income tax, no sales tax. So, why New Hampshire for tax purposes?
Yeah, so New Hampshire is one of the best states in the country from an income tax perspective, and really just from a tax perspective generally. There is no income tax in New Hampshire, and that covers both interest and income as well as capital gains. There's no sales tax, so if you're a frequent purchaser of Amazon packages, you're not paying any income tax on state level income tax on those purchases. And we also have no estate tax.
Okay.
We're the only state in New England that has no estate tax and no income tax.
So how does New Hampshire get taxes? Like, how do they produce revenue?
New Hampshire produces revenue in a couple ways. One is we have a business profits tax.
Yep.
And a business enterprise tax. Which is really a tax on operational businesses in New Hampshire. So just by virtue of coming to New Hampshire as a resident, you won't be subject to business profits tax, which is a 7.5% tax on business profits.
Got it.
Or the business enterprise tax, which is 0.5% tax. Generally, those are taxes made exclusively for operating businesses.
Business owners.
Here, but
Yep.
not for residents generally.
Got it. What I hear a lot, well, New Hampshire must have a huge real estate taxes, property taxes, and some towns do and some towns don't. So from a real estate perspective, we work with clients to say, all right, if you really want to shelter and not pay a lot of taxes, here are the towns that you should focus on. So the lack of income tax, what's the impact on high net worth individuals?
Yeah, so for high net worth individuals, I'll focus on two areas. One, on the income tax side, especially for retirees. Again, because there's no income tax, there's no capital gains tax. If you're looking at distributions from your retirement accounts, 401ks, IRAs, pensions, none of that is taxable.
Yeah.
If you're getting distributions from private equity interests, hedge funds, so on and so forth, again, not taxable at the state level. And then on the estate tax side, because we have no estate tax, you can pass on wealth to future generations without having to incur a state level estate tax, which again, every state in New England imposes except for New Hampshire.
Except for New Hampshire. I find that people hear of Vermont and Maine more than New Hampshire, and I think it's because that we just haven't had a lot of homes for sale in the last coming years, because interest and dividends, that's just been phased out, correct?
Yeah, so as of January 1, 2025, there is no longer an interest and dividends tax on interest or dividends that are received by New Hampshire residents. It used to be such that there was a tax on those, but through Governor Sununu and the legislature at the time, they slowly phased it out, and as of January 1, 2025, there's no more interest and dividends tax in New Hampshire. So we're purely a no income tax state.
Because when I had clients look at Florida versus New Hampshire, they might have the Florida plates up here because Florida was in a better category, but as they've phased out a lot of these income taxes, it's made New Hampshire just as great.
Absolutely. So it's leveled the playing field vis-a-vis Florida. We still do have the business profits tax and business enterprise tax if a business is operating here, but absent that, we are on the same plane as.
So from a retirement, or if you're going to sell a business, or lots of different things, people would want to establish residency. So to live here is a really good place to live from a tax perspective.
Absolutely.
So you mentioned capital gains, dividends, interest for tax purposes. Let's talk about Massachusetts and Connecticut and Vermont and Maine, our neighboring states, like their tax structure compared to New Hampshire. Like, why are people choosing to move up? Because I'm seeing them come up here, but what are the reasons they're giving you?
Again, a lot of it is income tax driven. I'm sure there's other quality of life benefits that New Hampshire offers in comparison as well. But specifically in Massachusetts, 2 years ago, Massachusetts passed the Massachusetts Millionaires Tax, which made the kind of overall income tax rate for people with incomes over $1 million 9%. It used to be 5%.
Wow.
The Mass Millionaires Tax added 4%. And that additive tax has had a kind of a migratory effect for people of means up to New Hampshire to avoid that punitive tax.
Yeah.
Again, if you can save 9% on either capital gains on the sale of business or on interest and income that someone receives, that's a material savings.
All right, so admittedly, I've always known about the taxes. People come here, they've been coming here forever, they come up, just go over the border just to buy a shirt, so they don't have to pay a tax on it, right? But what I've learned recently is more about the trust law and the, establishing trust, protecting your family's wealth, protecting your assets with trust. So just talk to me in general about New Hampshire and their trust.
Yeah. So over the last 15 years or so, New Hampshire has made a concerted effort to be one of the premier jurisdictions for trusts.
Okay.
And in order to be in that conversation, there's probably 6 or 7 states in the country that are kind of competing for that title.
Do they have lakes, mountains, and?
Yeah, usually there are small states
Okay.
that are trying to find a niche in order to attract business and create an industry, and New Hampshire being one of them. And it's the only state in New England that has modern trust laws to this extent. And to be in that conversation, you need to have at least 4 things. One is there can't be any income tax on trust, and we have that obviously through our really attractive tax laws in New Hampshire. The second is you have to have repealed what's called the rule against perpetuity, so that you can have a trust that lasts in perpetuity.
Okay.
Many states operate in a way that trust has to terminate at a certain period of time.
What's the reason for that?
Usually, it's a response to the old English law where you had estates that would last forever and concentration of wealth, and so a lot of states combated that by saying a trust can only last for example, in Massachusetts, 90 years.
Okay.
And so at the end of that period, the trust has to terminate and it goes out to the beneficiaries, regardless of what age they might be, what's going on in their lives. In New Hampshire, we've said that's an arbitrary rule. We'd rather allow families to hold their wealth and pass it on to their family members for many generations. And so we have dynastical trust. The third is you have to have directed trust, which means that generally speaking, a trust has a trustee that has, trustees should have 3 powers. One is to decide on how assets are invested. The second is to determine when, how much, for what purpose to make distributions out of the trust to beneficiaries. And the third is to do all the administrative tasks, file tax returns, do the accountings, bookkeeping, so on and so forth. Typically, one trustee in most states has all 3 of those powers. And so when you pick somebody, you're cloaking somebody with a lot of power. In New Hampshire, we said those are distinct, finite roles. And so to give somebody flexibility to determine how the governance should operate, you can pick one person that's just in charge of investments, another person that's just in charge of distributions, and another person that's doing all of the back office work. And that's very attractive, especially for clients that want to retain power.
Got it.
And they can do that by still serving in that investment role and still managing their business despite having made a gift into a trust.
So I'm thinking that you'll have people that are transitioning to New Hampshire. Mm-hmm. So they might get a trustee and, so they can feel like I still have control of my assets as I'm transitioning to New Hampshire.
Right, and there's 2 real ways in which trusts kind of come into play, especially for high net worth individuals. You have irrevocable trust where people are making a gift into a trust, and there's a concern like, oh gosh, I don't want to give up complete control over these assets. Well, in New Hampshire, you don't have to give up complete control because you can retain at least the investment power over assets in the trust. The other is revocable trust, where everyone's assets are ultimately going to pass, generally speaking, on death. And revocable trusts offer that same optionality, but the big reason that being a New Hampshire resident gives you beneficial status is that trust can last in perpetuity. If you're in Massachusetts, that trust has to terminate within 90 years.
What are some other features of New Hampshire trusts?
Yeah, I'll give two more. One is that we have very flexible provisions in our trust code that allow for modification or decanting of trusts. There's somewhat of a joke in the New Hampshire bar that there's no such thing as an irrevocable trust,
Right.
Because trustees have a lot of power to modify and decant trusts so that they can be as optimized as possible for whatever the kind of family situation is. So if you have a irrevocable trust from, that's outdated and old and hasn't kept up with the times, in New Hampshire you can easily modify that to optimize it. The other thing is that we have quiet trusts in New Hampshire. This is a unique law where in most states, once a beneficiary of a trust turns 18, they have to be made aware of the trust and be entitled to receive accountings as to what's in the trust and what the activity of the trust is. In New Hampshire, as a response to avoid spoiled kids, we've allowed for a quiet trust, which allows the trustee not to disclose to a younger beneficiary the trust itself and what's in it, and instead appoint a trust protector who is looking out for younger beneficiaries, making sure that the trust is operating correctly, but keeping the kids away from the details so that they're not spoiled.
So that's not something that's widely used?
It's not available in most states.
Okay.
Most states have a firm requirement that once a beneficiary reaches age of majority, 18 or 21 in some states, they're entitled to all that information.
Okay, interesting. Yeah, I heard one of my clients talk about he had a high net wealth, had a lot to pass on, and he was passing it on, but one of the requirements is they had to have a job that they made at least $100,000 a year. So that told him they had a good job, they had full-time employment, just to have some responsibility as they're gaining this wealth.
And just to piggyback on that, one of the marquee features of New Hampshire's trust law is that we in New Hampshire respect what's called settler intent. And so provisions like that, where the settler, or the person who creates the trust, has specific wishes. You have to have a job. You can't. You have to be religious. You have to go to church. Whatever the case may be. Right. New Hampshire makes it clear that the settler's intent is to be respected. So those types of provisions are upheld.
Good. Well, we're here at a gorgeous property. It is for sale, and we're hoping that somebody that hears about the benefits of New Hampshire, because one of the things that I've noticed over the last year, certainly since COVID, is you see the map of Los Angeles to Austin, or San Francisco to Florida. You see all of the trend coming in, and migrants of people going there because of different tax benefits or just lifestyle benefits or what have you. But New Hampshire hasn't made the map because we haven't had enough homes to sell people. So there's just not the arrows coming in. This doesn't mean that there isn't a reason to come. It doesn't mean that there's less demand. One example was I had someone who was going to sell their business, bought a very nice big house here, but his story is he went to his financial provider here, he's in California, his advisor, and he said, where should I move? I'm gonna have this event in the future, where should I move? And he came back with probably the other states that you've been talking about, but didn't mention New Hampshire. It just wasn't on the radar. And he said, well, I just talked to a friend of mine. He said, well, have you considered New Hampshire? As financial planner, said, well, let me do some research. And the financial planner came back and said, yeah, you should move to New Hampshire, right? So we're just not well known. So that's why we're here. We're talking about the benefits. We're talking about, we live here by choice. We feel fortunate. I feel fortunate to be making a living in New Hampshire and being able to enjoy the skiing, the lakes, the ocean, all of that it has. But we have this amazing opportunity for people that have these, propensity that have to pay taxes. We have a place that they can pay less taxes.
And I think there's two takeaways from that. One is that by virtue of New Hampshire not being, quote, on the map, but just having all the benefits of all these other states, is it's still a relatively quiet state. You don't have crazy amounts of traffic. Right. There's not tons of people here. It's still kind of like a hidden gem. And that's nice. The other is, I bet on those arrows, you don't see many arrows going out of New Hampshire. Right. I think most people, once they come here and they realize the benefits of this state, both from a tax, a trust, and just quality of life perspective, they're here.
Yes, I mean, we have big names in Wolfboro, down in the Seacoast, all over the place that this is home. It's funny because I'm in a group of realtors that sell properties to celebrities and sports and entertainment people. But I joke that we get most of the coaches because they're going all over the place, but they want a place for their family to come. They want a home base. They might call a lot of other places that they live, but this is home. And because of the great state and what it has to offer, but also because of the tax benefits and the trust benefits.
Yeah, exactly. One thing that we didn't mention, and it kind of dovetails into the home, is we have in New Hampshire the ability to create asset protection trusts, which are unique insofar as you can create an irrevocable trust, be the beneficiary of that trust, put assets into that trust, and the trust is protected from your creditors.
Yep.
Which most states say if you create a trust and you're going to be a beneficiary of it, that's not protected from creditors. New Hampshire is one of the half a dozen or so states that allow for that.
Wow, good. Well, I appreciate your time. Thank you for coming and enjoying the nice warm weather at this fantastic home. How should people contact you should they have more questions about this?
So I'm on our website, Patrick Collins at McLane Middleton. Any questions about trust law, tax law, we're happy to help.
And if you're a high net wealth individual or anyone who wants to move to New Hampshire, thedowgroup.com, adamdow.com, or call me directly, reach out to me. We would be happy to answer questions about finding you a home. If you like the content of this talk, and if you want to learn more about New Hampshire, lifestyle, practical aspects like trusts, income tax, how to find a waterfront home, how to find a ski house, please like and subscribe to our channel and listen for more information.